So I'm just going to make sure we're okay with the slide deck, Steve. Okay, super. So I have the pleasure of introducing this morning Don Michael Thompson. And Don Michael is an educator at BCSC. So for those of you who don't know, or are fairly new to UDL, that is Bartholomew Consolidated School Corporation. And BCSC has been a partner with UDL-IRN for many, many years. They have a very strong UDL implementation. Many of the folks in this room are connected to BCSC in some way or another. And so they are a powerhouse in UDL implementation. And so Don Michael has been at, prior to going to BCSC, for 14 years, he was a teacher at the Atterbury Jobs Corps Center, then moved to BCSC in 2015 as a social studies teacher at McDowell Education Center, the home of BCSC's alternative high school programs. He's an alternative education teacher. Yeah. Since 2016, he has been a restart program teacher, and he's going to tell you a little bit about what that is in more detail, but he calls it the alternative program. So actually amplifying that alternative piece. He uses universal design in his classroom, and he's going to tell you his story about Sammy. Here's the kicker. I have been waiting since this came in January to hear the end of the Sammy story. So I'm going to be sitting on the edge of my seat. He would not tell us.
Nope.
You kept mum to the word. He was not going to tell us the end of the Sammy story. So we are all going to find out together. Don Michael.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Don Michael Thompson. This is my first time at this institute. It is my first time talking to a group of people this large. Hopefully that's the only first I don't fall off the stage, or the first time the lights burn a hole in my retina. So we will just try and keep those with the first today. As the introduction said, I am a teacher at the Restart program, so I'm going to move on through here. I have been working in alternative education since 2001. I started as a teacher at the Atterbury Job Corps Center. Job Corps is a Department of Labor program still around from President Johnson's Great Society. We take students with certain socioeconomic needs. They come in, they get a vocational trade and a diploma or GED if they don't have one. It's a great program. It wouldn't still be around this long if it wasn't, but the students aren't always super academically self-motivated. In 2015, I moved to Bartholomew Consolidated School Corporation in Columbus, Indiana, and worked at McDowell, and then have been at Restart since 2016. Restart is for students in grades 7 through 12. They meet certain requirements, but typically they're on a expulsion track based on behavior or other issues. So they come to me and I work to try and keep them engaged. It's a great program, but the students aren't always super academically self-motivated. At BCSC, I was introduced to Universal Design for Learning. And as mentioned, BCSC was one of the first corporations in direct collaboration with CAST to adopt UDL as the framework for all curriculum and instruction with all students. And it is the place that I was able to go to the UDL Summer Institutes every year. I was given a lot of support. I learned from some of the nation's best researchers like Katie Novak and Louis Lord Nelson, and I have learned a lot through that. What I can tell you is UDL works. UDL works with students of all ages, all backgrounds, in any environment, but is especially useful with students in alternative education. Multiple means of engagement is the way to get my students engaged, and to get them working, that's usually the key, if I can get them positively engaged, the key to success. And sometimes people say that my students can be a bit squirrely. That's okay, UDL works with squirrely students. I know that because UDL works with actual squirrels. This is Sammy the squirrel. Now, before we get to the point where Sammy would just kind of walk into the classroom and get a treat when she felt like it, we're going to start at the end and then Tarantino our way backwards to the beginning. In 2021, I was given a new classroom. And after the former teacher's items were removed, I wanted to intentionally redesign the environment using things that I'd learned at some of the prior UDL institutes. So I picked a few calming colors to repaint the walls, and a former student picked the color that I used. He picked Sleepy Hollow. He said it made him think of taking a nap, but I still think it turned out pretty well. After I painted the walls and cleaned the carpets. I didn't want to just junk the room up with a bunch of stuff. So I was intentional about putting some posters up, focused on goals to keep the students mindful of what they are there for. I have my desks arranged in a circle, start each day with a circle question of the day, try and get all my students to get involved with that. I have a schedule I developed where the students know what they can expect every day when they come in. So a lot of my students have a lot of chaos in their lives outside of school. So knowing what they expect when they get to my room helps them feel a little bit more secure with me. I give each student a student interest survey, and I ask them what their favorite snack and favorite candy is, and then I get those things to have as part of the reinforcements with my PBIS program. I have a race car track that I use for my goals tracking, and the students get to pick out their own cars. If a student picks a car like this one, I know that we're going to get along well and have some laughs. They can pick whatever the car they want, so he chose that one. I also have my race car track has more sections for on track than behind or ahead, just as a visual reinforcement that I expect my students to be on track. This corner of the room used to have a bunch of file cabinets and stuff in it. I cleaned those out, and I have a student resource and supply station where the students can get items that they need, or in Walmart donated the water cooler. The last thing that I wanted to include in my room was a squirrel feeder. I had seen some squirrels out in the yard and some squirrel nests up in the trees. So I put a feeder out there. I'd had squirrel feeders before. Squirrels all love corn. So there we go. We'll just wait for the squirrel to show up. 2 weeks later, who's the SpongeBob people out there? Okay. I was going to try that with a French accent, but all I can really pull off is hillbilly. So 2 weeks later, no squirrels, and no squirrels that come to the feeder. So I shucked some kernels off a different cob, and I left a little trail like a Johnny Appleseed or Johnny Corn Cob, I guess, from the trees to the feeder. Another week goes by, still nothing. And it's not like the squirrels were coming there when my students and I were gone because the cob hadn't been touched. So I'm starting to wonder what's wrong with these screwball squirrels. But wasn't anything wrong with the squirrels. There was something wrong with me, or at least with the approach I was taking. So let's try a UDL approach instead. The squirrels weren't going to fill out my student interest survey, so my students and I figured out what some things we might use for the squirrels other than corn. We picked unsalted roasted peanuts. So I get the peanuts and go leave a little trail like a Johnny Peanut shell from the trees to the feeder. And finally, we saw a squirrel picking up peanuts, burying them in the yard. The maintenance people probably weren't happy about that, but whatever. So the goal was to get the squirrel to the feeder. So put some more peanuts, put some peanuts on the feeder, make sure the squirrel knows, hey, come on up here. And there we go. The squirrel had come to the feeder, but wasn't eating the corn. Now, we did celebrate this as an achievement because we celebrate all the achievements at Restart. So I figured maybe the squirrel just doesn't know it's supposed to eat the corn. So I pulled some kernels out, shellac a peanut into the space, smear peanut butter all over the corn, put it back on the feeder on Friday, and then I leave. I figured when I get back on Monday, corn's going to be gone. Not so much. The squirrel was not interested in the goal that I had set. Nothing I did seemed to be changing that. So I'm out there putting some peanuts out, and the squirrel's on the sidewalk one day, and I hold the peanut out, and the squirrel looks at me. It doesn't run away immediately. I take a step, and then it runs away. So new goal. Squirrel doesn't want the corn. New goal, we're going to get the squirrel to take a peanut from me by fall break. And that was the target date. So time's running out. So starting off, lift the blinds up so the squirrel can see me. She seemed to recognize where the peanuts were coming from. After a couple of days of this, the students named the squirrel Sammy. Now, we picked the name Sammy because we didn't know if Sammy was a boy or a girl, and we went with Sammy because it would fit either way. And I didn't want my school internet search to have, how do you find a squirrel's genitals on there? I figured that might pop up as some kind of a flag at the admin office. We did discover, though, that when one of Sammy's friends showed up a couple months later, that Sammy is a girl because, well, I don't have the laser pointer. Sammy was a girl. So moving on. Now we're going to try and get Sammy to oh, the video didn't play there. Can I hit back? All right, let's try it. Yeah, never mind. Doesn't matter. All right, so the squirrel comes up. I'm opening the window up so that she can see and hear me. I started putting some peanuts in the screen here so that she can come up and get some peanuts out of there. I do want to point out the screen was already torn. I didn't do that. The building is kind of janky and the screens were already torn, so I just kind of used that to my advantage. So work that way. Now I'm putting these videos online. The day I put this video online, you can see I decided hold my hand out so that Sammy can see my hand being close. Gives me a little bit of a side eye there. Decides it's okay, takes the peanut. And I was trying to pretend to be brave, but if you watch them, kind of, ooh. I had told my boss about these videos. She let me know that day that squirrel bites would not be covered by workman's comp. But we had a goal in mind, so moving on. So I started to open the windows up and tape the screen back so Sammy could see and hear me. She gets the peanuts and takes them on. I kept the routine going for the rest of the week. Now we're almost to a fall break here, so not getting the audio on that. You can hear me talking to her in the video, the other videos. All right. Can we advance to the next one? On the last day of the week before we get to fall break, this is where it's time to go for broke. So we get to Friday, this is D-Day. So start off with the routine that Sammy knows. Well, getting the audio, but we'll just move on. Sammy decides to take both the peanuts. Anytime there was a peanut on the counter, Sammy wasn't interested in the ones that I had. But we're going to just keep moving with the routine. Now, here we've got a peanut on the counter, and then I hold one. Now, you can't tell from the video, but I had picked the longest peanut that I could find in the bag to try this. I didn't really want to find out if my boss was lying about the workman's comp, and I didn't want to get bitten and have some kind of like COVID rabies variant. So better safe than sorry. If there were any peanuts on the counter, Sammy wouldn't take it. Finally, we get to the last peanut, and it's the one in my hand. Now, I have virtual students in the morning, which gave me some opportunity to work with Sammy. My in-person students come in the afternoon. This was the first video I showed them when they arrived that day. Okay. Well, she took the peanut from me. All right. Before I left for fall break, changed the feeder out. I wanted to give Sammy a version of my student resource center so that she could have some treats while I was away for fall break. When I got back from fall break, though, all the food was still in there. So I thought maybe she hadn't seen it, but it turned out the lid was too heavy. I thought it was going to work, but it didn't. So a few redesigns later, the feeder was accessible for Sammy all the time, and then she would still come and get the treats from me when I would come to the window. Then when I explain this story to students, I tell them that this is an example of how I redesign things to meet their needs as well, so that they understand that I'm not just doing this for the squirrels. For those of you that are paying attention, yes, this is the same shirt. It's not the only shirt I wear to school, but it is the one I like. Now, I started some other goals like seeing, hey, maybe we can get Sammy to take a peanut.
Good morning, Sammy. Would you like a peanut? Here you go.
See if she would get one from me while I'm all the way outside. So moving on, doing some more goals, because when my students reach small goals, I try to set larger goals for them. So set some larger goals from Sammy. I thought, well, maybe let's see, can I get Sammy to come down from her tree to take a peanut from me?
Here you go. You want it? Come and get it. All right.
Now, if she had jumped off and landed on my head, that video wouldn't be included here. Just, Sammy may get kind of big over the winter time, and then one day she shows up super slim and some additional equipment that she didn't have before. Sammy had babies. So Sammy was a mom and it changed around some of the stuff that I gave her so that she has a better diet for her babies. Now, all this stuff that I'm putting online, I get known as the Squirrel Whisperer, and people give me all this squirrel stuff, a calendar and all sorts of things. So my boss gave me a birthday card, Sammy. Sammy, that day, I took the picture of her on the right, and I think she gave me a better smile than the one that the squirrel in the card had. Maybe I'm a little biased on the subject. I put together a Donors Choose project. So many people were following all these Sammy posts that in 3 days, I had $300 worth of funding for squirrel food and also treats for the human students that I have in my classroom. And let's face it, I'm pretty sure when the selection committee looked at the video and saw Sammy's picture, it was the picture of Sammy, not the picture of me, that got them to choose the video. And you'll notice, yeah, it's the same shirt. I really like it. However, between the time that I sent in my proposal and the time that I found I'd been accepted, had a little bit of a setback. Sammy showed up one morning and wasn't looking quite right. It kind of looked like she had like an injury on her neck. And I was outside and I thought, well, injured squirrel, maybe not the best idea to be outside. So let's go back inside. But I wanted to see if I could get her to take a peanut and give me a better look at her neck. So she takes the peanut. You can see here her eyes are kind of squinty, her ears are back. She's moving the peanut around, but not really moving her mouth. And then I replayed the video and paused and saw the injury to her neck. So I panicked. I put out a call for help. A friend of mine at work, she works in an animal wildlife rehab place, said she'd bring a box over. We can get Sammy caught. We can take her. My boss said, in the afternoon when I've got time after my meetings, I'll come over. We will, I'll watch your class and you can get Sammy and take her to the vet. So my boss got this picture of me outside explaining to Sammy, I'm going to get you some help. But first, I've got to trap you in this box. She didn't make it easy, but got her in the box, got her strapped in the back seat of the car, and hit the road. So we get to Utopia Wildlife and open the back seat, and you can see Sammy is giving me what looks to be the squirrel equivalent of the bird. Yeah, I get it. She wasn't feeling good. I put her in a box. The box didn't have traction inside. I'm taking some sharp curves, getting her there. She slid around, backseat driver. So I drop her off at Utopia, and I tell them this is a Wednesday, and I say, don't tell me anything until Friday, until after school on Friday. So after school on Friday, the vet says, size of Sammy's teeth, she's at least 5 years old. She weighed 5 pounds. Obviously very well taken care of, they said. Other than her injury, she was pretty good. But as for the injury, it looked like she'd gotten her head caught in something with a metal edge, panicked. When she pulled back, she cut her esophagus, and she didn't make it. Yeah, hey, you've known her for 10 minutes. I knew her for a year. I wasn't happy about it either. That's why I waited till after school on Friday. I didn't want to ugly cry in front of my students. And I didn't think I could not. So, since this is the UDL-IRN and the best research must be repeated, and I can't come down here and bum you people out and have you go the rest of the day, I want to make sure to remind you of this picture. Sammy had babies. Now, the vet says that female squirrels are easier to train, male squirrels aren't. But if a squirrel has been trained, that's a trait it can pass down to its offspring. Now, I've got about 5 male squirrels that come to the feeder. Some of them are darker hair, some are hairier ears. They look a little different from Sammy, but this guy's named Skippy. Now, Skippy has the same color fur, same kind of ears, looks kind of like Sammy did. After Sammy died, Skippy was the first squirrel to come up to the window and let me know he needed some treats. So I started giving him some treats. Skippy would come up to the open window and get some treats. I could get Skippy to come inside, and this is a whole lot less time it took Sammy to do it. And this is the video playing there. Okay, well, there's male squirrels that come by too. The rest of the male squirrels are coming by and getting treats as well. They see Skippy getting treats, so they're coming by. The thing I want you to take away from all this is I did not have to reinvent the wheel. I already had my plan in place. The feeder was already redesigned for Sammy. It was accessible for all the rest of the squirrels too. I already had my treats, although the male squirrels, some of them actually like corn, so I didn't have to worry about that. This also applies to my classroom. I didn't have to repaint it again, although I did buy a carpet cleaner machine so I can clean the carpet about once a quarter just to keep it nice and fresh. I keep the supply station stocked up with stuff that the new students like, and then just kind of go with what works. I've got my plans in place that work with my squirrels and my squirrely students. UDL allows you to put in a little work up front, you get results down the line. In August, I had a new student that said he was at his high school in the morning, looked at his schedule and said, I've got this guy named Thompson at Restart. Someone else was walking by and says, oh, you'll like that guy. He's got a pet squirrel and he really takes care of his students. Now with alternative ed students, you can't buy positive word of mouth like that, but you can earn it, and UDL helps. Unfortunately, the weather in Indiana for my fellow Hoosiers changed, and I couldn't get the squirrels to come by in the morning anymore. They come by in the afternoon, and then I work with my human students at that time. So maybe when the weather changes and I can start working with them again, maybe by summer break, I'll have a couple of new squirrels that can take some peanuts from me, or maybe I'll just give up all this teaching stuff. I'll teach the squirrels to commit crimes. I could become a super villain. I've already got the name, the Squirrel Whisperer, and his vicious varmints. So be on the lookout. If you don't see me here next year, I might be up there causing mischief. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. And for the panel, all right.
Just wanted to give you a chance to take your bow. Wonderful. Thank you, Don Michael. Wasn't that great? I have tears in my eyes. Anyone else? Yeah. All right. That's the way we like it here at the IRN. Thank you for that. So we're just going to get a few chairs up on stage, and we're going to have our UDL panel. Brian's coming back up to facilitate that panel. So take a moment to think about what questions you might have for either Don Michael or Tara or Jose, or maybe all three. Maybe you can come up with some ways that they're all connected and think of, sorry, Jamie,